Hey guys, this is Kirob speaking, and today we are going to take a look at the just announced future features in Potion Craft. And if you are keen to hear a lead designer's perspective on what these entail or might entail, and if they are good choices or not, you have come to the right place. So let's dive into them. So they just posted their little update on the upcoming features, and the only thing we know is, apart from what they have been telling us so far in previous devlogs and so on, is these little pictures that are all being on display right there. And let's go through them one by one and let me comment a little bit on this. And also some general perspectives from the point of a developer who also is kind of a producer at the same time. So in case you don't know, if you're new here, first of all, welcome. I'm the lead designer of Automation, the car company tycoon game, also a producer of that, and systems designer. I'm wearing many hats, and also the Cyclist Tactics. That's a digital board game style tactics game, also very cool. Anyway, enough of the plugging. Now let's dive into this one. So the only real development thing I have with Potion Craft is that I have my developer perspective, and I'm a decent player at it. So upcoming features: garden upgrades and planting management. All right, so let's first talk about the garden the way it is at the moment. Every morning you go there and new plants have grown. And depending on how far into the game you are, the more advanced plants can spawn there, but they tend to stay at the lower range of rareness. So overall, it's just a little freebie that is keeping players afloat in times where they are struggling. It is a very nice fallback safety net mechanic as such, and I think it is a very good mechanic because of that. It does make the, on a relative basis, it makes the game harder for people who are faster, who accomplish more each day, and it makes it easier for people who prefer a much slower speed in terms of play, in terms of number of days they want to use, and just has this beautiful safety net mechanic to it. Cool, so you're always going to get some base components there, but it does feel very simplistic and a little empty, and it's just like slapped in there. Yeah, you have an enchanted garden and stuff grows there, cool. Having something that lets you grow plants yourself, of your choosing, that would give you a kind of reliable supply of components that you need or want. And that could also tie into what we see right next to it, some kind of upgrade system for your garden and so on. And overall, what I want to point out is that this is a feature that already exists in the game, but one that is in some decent need of being fleshed out. Not in dire need of being fleshed out. That prize goes to the talents tree at the moment. That's just really bad design at the moment. It's a placeholder design. It's a functional placeholder design. That doesn't mean it's good. But the garden, while thematically being really cool, is, and the talents tree doesn't have that. It's thematically horrible and it's just bad. But the garden is thematically really cool. And building on top of that, I think, is a really smart idea. Also because the systems are already in place. One very important thing to not forget when you're developing a game such as this is that you want to not build out your scope with stuff that is not essential to your core gameplay mechanics. Core gameplay mechanics here in this case are very clearly the exploration and crafting of potions. So anything that directly ties into or feeds into facilitating that activity is a good feature. If you, on the other hand, are talking about something like, oh, but how about building out the town or having some, let's say, romance thing. The romance thing wouldn't do anything to the core gameplay loop. It would be cool, don't get me wrong. Who doesn't want to romance Herbalist Girl, or Shroomy for that matter? But yes, that is just not essential or directly tied to the core gameplay. As long as you already have such mechanics sitting there, which are neglected to some degree, like the garden, like the talents tree, it is really offering itself for being fleshed out. And they have been, from what I'm seeing here, they are really smart about that. What this does is that you have a game that doesn't get unfocused or doesn't feel unfocused to players that are coming new into it. If you do the AAA thing and just, let's do everything because we can just throw millions at the problem. Well, these guys can soon throw millions at problems as well because they are selling really well, but they probably don't want to. And this game, with its very limited and compact scope, shouldn't, because it would make it actively worse. Let's say they put in a new feature. Like they have the core game, which is this fist here, the fist of potion craft. Also likes to punch me in the face. And then you have this new feature here, this one, and you don't have them connected. People are going there to have fun right at the moment. Then if you make them go to here, this new feature, this little feature there, sitting on the sides, is not nearly as fleshed out as the big one. And that means that you're watering down the main experience with something that is not nearly as satisfying to use. So you're watering down the overall experience. Think AAA, let's try everything, let's be an RPG shooter, blah, 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 blah. Just throw in all the genres. It will be fine because we can do everything. No, that actually makes the game worse. The core game, the fist that punches me. So what you want to do is exactly this. You have these little knuckles there, and you want to make the knuckle nicer instead of making a completely different fist, which distracts from the original fist. This explanation is shit, but I think you get the point, right? Anyway, so you want to polish what you have and round it off as best you can. They are doing it with the garden. Planting. So you could, for instance, think about planting, caring for the garden. They shouldn't make this a tedium, but rather an interesting choice. Like, where do you want to focus your attention? Facilitating different play styles, adding replayability value. That all could work really well. All right, but now that we have talked about this, let's go to my biggest criticism of the game at the moment in 1.0. The talents tree is pretty garbage in absolute terms, perfectly functional as a placeholder, and it's not fun to use. It has a meta, which you should follow, as you have seen in my little series there, the good start guide. And when you've figured it out, there is nothing to it, and it doesn't have an endpoint. It doesn't have a progression arc in any kind of capacity. It just feels meh overall. How do you deal with that? Well, we can take a look at this little picture they have here. It's very interesting. So what do we see here? It's your overall level in the center. It's this little number shows you how many skill points you have left to spend, I would assume. And then around this, you see segmented nodes. Kind of a more modern style of skill tree, as you would see in ARPGs. And we have 8 segments, for instance, for this one. Here, these are filled, or this one is filled, this one seems filled, this one seems filled. This can either mean, and we don't see segmentation here, this can either mean there's only one you can choose, like a skill point to sink into there, or it can mean that all 8 skill points have been spent on this. Like same segmentation as this one, which would give you 8. And there seem to be some interesting skills in there. Like this eye, for instance, could be visibility upgrade for your potion map, right? This here seems to be some kind of planting thing for your garden. This here looks like it is a healing cross kind of symbol, which maybe means some kind of upgrade to your potion health. Maybe you start with potions that are very weak on the map and get stronger. Really cool effect if that is the case. So that would allow you to stay in the dead zones a little longer and maybe reach places you shouldn't, which makes it really interesting. And also just facilitates different playstyles. Do you want to be a little safer, or do you want to be... do you need this to be really aggressive with your ingredient use? Then we have this one down here, which could be something like the haggling, the trading. Looks like the trading skill. And this one could be some kind of gardening stuff. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but it's very segmented, so you can put 8 skill points into this before it's full. Also, we see that these nodes do split off, which is cool. So you need to probably place at least 1 skill point into them. Or do you? No, actually not. You see, this one would imply that, for instance, here you have a skill point needs to be sunk into this one to unlock it, because it doesn't have segmentation. And then you can access the others that are beyond. But this one, I'm not sure if this one is actually grayed out or not. This one might be, and we see some kind of segmentation. So maybe these need to be completely filled in order to allow you to proceed beyond this. If that is the case, I would discourage from doing it like this, because it doesn't leave options. This means, I need to go down through the tree. It removes the question of how much should I focus on that node. So don't do this, developers. If you are aiming for something like this at the moment, I would assume this is very much a placeholder, very much a work in progress. It's just going to show you a few of these elements in there. But overall, I really like the system. It is way more in-depth than what we have at the moment. And how well it plays just depends on how well it is implemented. This certainly would fill the big void that we currently have in terms of progression, if done right. Let's move on. New substances and salts. I think this is pretty much a no-brainer. Some new substances and salts. For instance, we currently have salts, as far as I know, only in... maybe some of those actually are already more advanced, and I haven't seen them yet. But the teleportation salts, or the crystals rather, they are all archetypal in the major cardinal directions and the diagonals. And what if there are some that are more like circular, that are going around? Could add something like this. For instance, this one could be that, right? This looks like some kind of salty crystal type that has stuff growing around it in like slinging around it. Maybe that one also replicates some kind of rotation in the teleportation path. Would be useful in some instances where you want to have some versatility. So definitely things that can be done with some more crystals and so on. The crystal side feels a little underdeveloped at the moment, so I certainly welcome some advancements there. Salts, there are lots of ideas that can be put in there. The potion rotation was really cool, but there are so many other things that could be done with this, like I said in one of my playthroughs, have a teleportation salt that gradually converts the path that you have laid out into a teleportation path. Would be very expensive, of course, but all salts kind of are. So, alchemical gear upgrades and shop customization. We already have some little tidbits for that. You see, when you're going to shop upgrades, there's a special tab for this, so they've thought about this before. They thought about implementing that, but probably it didn't make the cut for 1.0. Smart choice to not put it in if it's not finished. So, all right, shop customization. What would these do? Well, you can upgrade your equipment, right? I'm not sure what that would accomplish. if it maybe would extend paths because you can grind it finer to yes, you can atomize the water blooms that you throw in there, and then the next mortar and pestle makes quark gluon plasma out of it. I don't know, but that sure would be interesting if there were some more interactions with the map itself, or how ingredients interact with the map, but also very dangerous if you wanted to go down that path, because then you no longer have an easily reproducible path for the ingredients. It can be basically whatever at that point, which is really strange, right? So probably not going to go there, but I'm not sure what they are going to do with the upgrades. Is it just visual? Is it just for the bling? Maybe. I don't know. Then we have new merchants and customers. In the previous devlog, you can check that out if you haven't seen it. I'm going to link it down below. We talked about the NPCs and how they work, and I was making a suggestion for... They were saying that karmic traders were going to be introduced. The old hag and the archdruid. Archdruid only showing up if you have a very high reputation. Old hag only showing up if you have a very low reputation, as an evil. And different customers as well, new customer types. And that's cool and all. I was making the suggestion in that previous video that they should have a neutral kind of trader. That guy there could very well be that. I don't know. So it would be cool to see a neutral kind of trader that only shows up if you have an all-round neutral kind of reputation. And then the good and evil ones show up at the other extremes, which makes you then choose not just good or evil, but rather everything in between as well, depending on how much of let's call him the neutral merchant. Maybe he isn't a merchant at all, but he does have a backpack, so he's maybe an explorer or something. So how much you want to have of him versus of her, and the other combination would be Archdruid and him. And if you're only good, then you only see the Archdruid appear quite often. But they would offer you special components, themed components, and I think that makes perfect sense. It's a good gameplay addition, and it certainly ups the replayability value, because you can go down the evil path and the good path and anything in between, if they actually add the neutral trader. Otherwise, it is basically just good and evil trader. Let's move on. So, two more interesting things here. They have already talked about the wine map and its mechanics, that the potions on the wine map don't heal. I think that should be a general feature, actually. That would make it really interesting. Maybe not for the water map, but yeah, definitely this will be very interesting for the wine map. It does have the bone split region, which is lightly damaging. They do have the healing regions. And as if this is actually a screenshot from the map, then look at how amazing this is. This is the fear effect. And on the water map, that is way out there. And it doesn't exist on the oil map. So having it so close by on the wine map just makes it mega. Also, it is very thematic. And also this one, the inspiration, doesn't exist on the oil map. It is only available on the water map, and it is turned around so that you can't get it without swords. Here you can, but there is some death in between you and that one. But it's extremely close. So I wonder, and maybe it's just put there for optical effect, because you see there is no dashed line going to it there. So I wonder if this is a bit of a tricky image trying to lure us into the magic of this map. New ingredient types. This would be a whole different branch of ingredients. Like animal parts and animals that you can grind down. That's getting a little evil there. Maybe there's a whole different alchemy, necromancy kind of map that you have available there. Kind of more witchcraft style than the current herbs and mushroom-based stuff. Then, very much appreciated, as we have seen prior in my Let's Plays, my frustration with the late game is very tangible in that it is just a slog to reproduce these subcomponents. In order to create an albedo, you do need a nigredo. That nigredo does contain lots of different potions. And sometimes you just run out of them and stuff, and then you have to do everything from scratch. And then the citrinitas does require an albedo, and the albedo requires the nigredo, and you see the point, right? It's getting insane. And this is 5 deep. The Philosopher's Stone does require the rubedo, which in turn requires the citrinitas, which in turn requires the albedo, which in turn requires the nigredo. That is like just garbage. Let me say it like this. This is not good design unless you have something that takes the tedium out of it. Then you can use it as a kind of balancing feature. Right now we don't have that, and which is why I think it is bad design. But they clearly have something in mind already, and this is looking pretty cool. It looks like it shows you exactly what you're going to need. Like, you want to make this one, the albedo. Well, that one has one main component, which is this one. And then down here on this line, on this main line, it would then branch out to the different potions that also are part of it. I think that's a really good idea. So, and then also there being different options for making these and what they are made of, just being able to see that, really good. I like it. It's a great system. New goals, features. Well, features. What does that mean? That can be anything. That's just their wild card, so that they can say, "But we told you we're going to add features." It can be basically whatever. Sounds, music, and more. Okay, so they are also going to work on the soundscape in general, and much more. I think let's finish that up with the Succubus demon hotfix lady, and they are going to add lots of things and do lots of things that are fleshing out the core gameplay loop, which I think is an amazing idea to do. It's very focused in development, and it will make the core game a better experience without making it completely overwhelming, because all the core gameplay is still there. And they have so far been pretty good at gradually introducing, was the word I was looking for, gradually introducing complexities to the game via the different chapters, and you're nicely guided through there. And more maps. This one is what is it called? Pluralis? Yes, it's more than one. Like a map, many maps, and potion bases. That's more. New, unique maps and potion bases. That does mean more than one. We know about that they are going to add the wine map. That was talked about. But if there are more, this here, new ingredient types, would point to more. And let me state the following. The exploration and wonder of discovering potions and effects, uncovering the map, I think is the strongest part of the game. That might be because I'm biased as the type of player that I am, that I love that kind of stuff. But I think it's a really strong point they have there. And having new maps is a really cool thing. I would even go as far and say that they've probably thought about this, that it might be worth investigating if they can find a viable way to randomly generated maps. Because you can, via pathing algorithms and such, you can figure out where to place things. And also you could work with kind of sections, tiles, that tile together in a different way, but always make sure that there is a way through, like done in ARPGs, for instance. If there was some kind of endgame component like this, where you have almost infinite replayability value, I think that would be really cool. But also very scary to implement in a game that is as highly polished as this one. Even in this 1.0 release, which certainly has a few things that are not so polished. But anyway, I think that is my thoughts for today. I hope you enjoyed that little discussion and add your comments down below. And I hope you enjoyed and see you guys next time.